What is up, everybody? Welcome to Kentucky Derby Prep Briefing. I'm your host, Colin Sheehan. Thank you so much for joining us here on Trust the Profits YouTube page. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It's so important for us, but also you want to get the reminders for all the great content that we are pumping out. Every Monday, I have this show, Kentucky Derby Prep Briefing, which gives you a quick update what happened on the Kentucky Derby and the Kentucky Oaks Trail. Every Tuesday and Wednesday, Matt DeSantis has the ever popular Win Place show. Thursday, I have my show called Doubling Down, where we give you a couple daily doubles coming up for that upcoming weekend. Thursday nights at 8, we have El Hombre's live betting, and Matt's been capping the card every week, and he has been on fire, so you don't want to miss that. What happened this weekend on the Kentucky Derby Trail? To me, the headline is actually not the Kentucky Derby Trail, but instead the Kentucky Oaks Trail. I started this show focused on the Derby, but there's too much happening on the Kentucky Oaks Trail, and there's some really intriguing horses, such as the Tom Amoss trained Hoosier Filly, who was dominant in victory in the Goldenrod. Then 1 week later, just this past weekend, we have the ever intriguing story of Julia Shining. She's sired by Curlin out of a dam by the name of Dreaming of Julia. Why is that important, you ask? That's because those are the exact same mother and father of Malathat. So Julia Shining is a full sister to Malathat. This Saturday, it was a rainy, sloppy day at Aqueduct for the Demoiselle, going 1 1/8 miles. This would be the next test for Julia Shining, both because of the off track and the step up in distance. For the most of the race, she really didn't look that interested. She's your number 3 here, all the way there in the back. And she stayed at the back, just like in her maiden score when she was 11th at the first call. Obviously dealing with kickback in this. Louis Assayas has been aboard for both races. And right here, you can say she's really being pushed. Prior to getting to the top of the stretch, she's number 3, second on the left in the back there. And once they hit the top of the stretch, you'll see how wide she comes, but you'll also see how impressive she is. And there she is. She's highlighted with the Trust the Profits logo there on the left side of your screen. And right here, she really finally starts to make her move, grabbing the lead at the 16th pole and finishing very nicely, reminiscent of Malathat, who also won this race, the Demoiselle. Julia Shining is going to ship to Florida. And Todd Pletcher mentioned that she's going to have a similar plan to Nest, which was the Suncoast at Tampa Bay Downs and then the Ashland in April at Keeneland, leading up to the Kentucky Oaks. Let's give you the updated Kentucky Oaks standings. The only change is, of course, Julia Shining, who earns 10 points for the victory in this race, putting her in that group of 5 with 10 points, which includes Hoosier Filly. Next up on Saturday was the Remsen Stakes for the boys. This would be worth 10 points towards the Kentucky Derby. And this ended up being a 2-horse race between WNHL. And I'm saying that a little bit different than the announcer did because I read that that's how you're supposed to respond instead of WNL. And the other horse that was battling with him was Arctic Arrogance. Your favorite was Tuskegee Airman, who was never really coming close to the 2 leaders here. What a great stretch finish we had here. And WHNL had a win at 7 furlongs over a sloppy track at Aqueduct in October. So this only showed his affinity for the slop. Again, in what was a great stretch battle there. He also clearly shows that distance isn't an issue. Trainer Danny Gargan is going to send him to Florida as well, but didn't rule out coming back to New York for possibly the Withers in February. Meanwhile, your second place finisher, Arctic Arrogance, picks up 4 points in these standings. And Linda Rice said that she is going to keep him in New York to also point towards the Withers. So your big change on the Derby points board is WHNL easy for me to say, picking up those 10 points, and Arctic Arrogance adding 4 points. One last interesting point that I wanted to point out for this weekend is that Stone Street swept the 2 stakes races that we're talking about with Julius Shining and WHNEL. Stone Street purchased Wild Games, WHNL's dam, for $1 million in 2008. So they are obviously feeling pretty good about some prospective Oaks and Derby horses that they have in their barns. Up next for the fillies is the Starlet Stakes, which is going to be taking place at Los Alamitos. This is a 1.16 mile race. And Tell Me No Lies is nominated for this race. She was the winner of the Debutante at Del Mar. An interesting fact about this race is that in 2014, a horse by the name of Feathered finished second. Feathered is the dam of a little horse named Flightline. So I thought that was pretty interesting when I went back and looked at previous runners in the Starlet Stakes. I saw the name Feathered and I immediately thought of Flightline. So it's always nice when you can connect. Horses will always kind of look back and make those connections to Flightline. Up next for the boys is actually December 17th. On the Kentucky Derby site there, they have it listed at December 10th, but it's going to be December 17th. This is the Los Alamitos Futurity, run at 1.16 mile on the dirt, and it's really the last major 2-year-old race on the West Coast. Bob Baffert has a record 6 wins in this race. Previous winners include Slow Down Andy, 1,000 Words, Mackenzie. You might remember looking at Lucky. And, of course, one of the great sires, Into Mischief. Some other notables to run but not win include Messier, Colonel John, and a horse that I absolutely loved going back, I believe, 2007 or 2008. I Want Revenge, who unfortunately scratched out of the Derby just prior, a couple of days prior to the Kentucky Derby. That's what's happened this weekend in the Remsen Stakes at Aqueduct and the Demoiselle with Julius Shining. Julius Shine makes it certainly an intriguing matchup that we're going to be fortunate of with Hoosier Philly and Julius Shining. That's kind of the two that you're hoping to see matchup now. That's if Hoosier Philly doesn't go towards the Kentucky Derby. Amos walking back a little bit on what he said. The comment got out there that Hoosier Philly's aimed towards the Derby. People were saying it's too early to talk about it. And it was taken a little bit out of context. He clearly stated whatever's best for the horse is what comes first. But I think the talent that you've seen of that horse, Amos has said that this is the most talented horse he's ever had in his barn, certainly leaves it open that the Kentucky Derby is a possibility for Hoosier Philly. And as horse racing fans, fillies in these big races is what really moves the needle. I think if you look at the excitement around Flightline, it really became a story that was within horse racing because Flightline hadn't been on the Triple Crown the year before. And it just doesn't garner the excitement that happens on horses that are in that Kentucky Derby or the Preakness or the Belmont Stakes. Any filly that enters into these big races really causes for intrigue. And the only horse that I can think of that wasn't on the Kentucky Derby trail, that's a filly that really moved that needle on the mainstream, was Zenyatta, my favorite horse of all time. Rachel Alexandra is another one that really moved the needle in bringing new fans to the sport. That was really what's most important to think about, not about it being too early or this and that. Let's focus on what could be a really exciting April and May if either of these fillies end up on the Kentucky Derby trail. At the very least, I think we have a great, a lot of exciting 2-year-olds. I think this is shaping up to be a very competitive 2-year-old group, and that only lends to some excitement for us as we turn the calendar to 2023. We're already in December of 2022. Please stick around with Kentucky Derby Prep Briefing. We were here in week 1 when it was the Iroquois Stakes. We've been with you every single week for every prep race, giving you a quick update on what's happened on the Kentucky Derby Trail. We're going to have some guests as we turn into the new year to hear their thoughts on what will be next year's 3-year-old crop. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for everybody's support, and we will see you after the Los Alamitos races.